Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
What I would fault Black Muslim leadership with, those of us who come after the days of the transition and all of that, we sort of just we're not taking the ingredients and baking from scratch. We're like buying ready-made dinners. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. We're just, whatever we learn, we're just dropping it on our communities. But we're not saying, I have this now, let me see, what do my people need. And I said this before, I'm sure you heard it. I don't think, we have some magnificent arguments for the oneness of Allah in our kalam and aqidah. Wonderful arguments. But if you present these arguments, these rational arguments, to the average person that's from the church, that doesn't free him from his shirk. Because again, he's been given an image of a white man as God for generations now. So you can give him as many rational arguments as possible, but as soon as a white man comes into the room, he acts differently,
Different, This is us. This is who we are, right?
Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that. With Black folk, most Black people, you don't need to convince them that Allah exists.
Right.
They believe in that already, right?
Yeah.
Right. The problem is like you said, this type of mental slavery that is attached to the belief in Allah Himself.
Right.
You get me? So many of us, we come from the church. I came from the church myself. My grandmother, both my parents, they worshiped white Jesus. I went to church and I worshiped white Jesus. That was my reality. My wife went to church. She worshiped white Jesus. You get me?
Yeah.
All my aunts and uncles, they did the same thing. My cousins did the same thing. Right. My sister did the same thing. Right. So this is where we come from. You don't have to convince us that Allah exists, right? And in many cases, you don't even have to convince us that Allah is one.
Right.
You don't even have to do that at all, right? Because even though we are seeing, Jesus, we're worshiping, white Jesus and whatnot. In our minds, we kind of understand that Allah is one, anyways. This is not the problem,
right?
So this doesn't really take too much convincing, right? What needs convincing is to get us out of this type of mental slavery and this inferiority complex that is deeply injected into our DNA. And it emulates in the way that we act, the way that we carry ourselves, the way that we go outside, the way that we treat each other. You know what I mean?
That's big.
The way that you treat other Black people. That's why we say all the time here that, our MO with other Black folks should be one of mercy and forgiveness, not of this type of attacking and harshness and refuting. We don't need that because there's so much of that. There's so much dogma in the Black community right now. You have the Israelites with this way out there dogmatic stuff, and then you have these new guys, these American Indian guys or whatever,
right.
I don't know if you what's this Dane Calloway's and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This is just some crazy stuff, man. But only Black people are falling into it because it's all like this attacking each other. That's the thing that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
You get me?
Yeah.
We don't need more things to attack each other with. We have too much of that already. But anyways, I talk too much. Go ahead, Sheikh. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I mean, I agree, and I would circle back around to identity. I think that's the real issue. I hear, we weren't brought here from Africa. We were already here. We were Native Americans and slaves. Just a complete rewriting of history. We're the original Hebrews. It's an identity problem.
Yes.
We're struggling to find who we are. And the reality is, with all of these various descriptions that Nation of Islam, the original man is the Asiatic Black man. In the final analysis, what is it doing? It's not really doing anything. It's just making us feel good. So that's the way Imam Muhammad taught us, and the way, as I understand it, the problem of identity has to be located in the pure language of the Qur'an. Because sometimes, as in the case of our people, the world can rob you of so much that you don't. The only thing, for Allah, yabda'ul khalqa thumma yu'idu. He begins the creation and he repeats it. So if you lose your humanity, you have to really turn to the one who gave it to you in the first place. And we have our prophet, prayers and peace be upon him, as the model of the best of what the human creation is. And I think that that is where our focus should be. The teachings of the Quran, the tradition of our prophet. So if I were to write a book addressing, I have some in the works, but I'm just saying this sort of rhetorically, writing a book addressing our condition, I would start with identity, and the identity of us is abstract first before it's concrete. I have two sons. One is light skinned, one is brown skinned. One has more the light skinned one has more wild hair like mine, and
Yeah, yeah.
the brown skin, it lays down a little bit more like his mother. It's a little bit more,
Lang,
yeah.
lang.
He's tall and lanky like his mother. The brown skin is tall and lanky like his mother's side. The light skin has my build. So, but they're brothers. These things are called accidents philosophically.
Yes.
We don't have any control over them, and these things are not important. These things are not the
Yes.
real human being. That's why Allah, he says in the Quran that in the judgment, the hands, the feet, the limbs will testify against the owner. So the owner is the real person, and the owner is the mind, the morality, the free will, and all of these other things that we associate with our true humanity. That's the real person. So before we have black skin, before we have thick lips or thick noses or nappy hair or straight hair, whatever the case may be, we have the human form, nafsin wahida.
Yes.
And that's where we should start in identifying ourselves. Now, upon that basis or from that human essence, we come into all of these other things. And all of these things are beautiful. But if we have an appreciation for all of these external qualities or descriptions, and we don't have our primary attention on the internal qualities, then we lose sight of everything. Even in the Quran, and I get a lot of pushback from this from blacks, but I know they're dealing with the same problem. In the Quran, I'm not talking about the Bible now. In the Quran, the prophets are never discussed for the highlighted for their physical features. It's hardly ever even hinted at.
Yeah, never mentioned. Never
Very,
mentioned.
never mentioned. When we read about Ibrahim alayhi salam, for an example, we are really reading about the disposition of mind that he has. He's observing the heavens, searching for God. He's questioning his people, challenging them really. He's asking Allah, show me how the dead are raised. So this is the intellect. This is the abstract entity. When we read about Yusuf alayhi salam, we do read that he was beautiful, so much so that the
Yeah, I was
women
about to mention that.
put their
That's
hands.
the closest thing you get to a
Right.
physical description. Yeah.
But notice Allah's not, those people are doing that. It's not Allah doing that. Those women are cutting
Yeah,
their
yeah.
hand.
Yeah, yeah.
He what we read about him, so when he is approached by the wife of the Aziz, he restrains from her. When he goes into prison, they say, we see you're a man of excellent character. Give us the interpretation of the dreams. When he's freed from the prison, before he even accepts freedom, he says, what's the condition of the women who cut their hand? So time and time again, his ihsan as a servant of Allah, his ihsan is being shown to us, because these qualities, these abstract qualities, are what's universal. And if we could form ourselves as individuals and as people, if we can reform ourselves upon the basis of these abstract, that really brings about our growth and development as Muslims. That's what we really need to be, following the prophetic models. So that's what I think. We're very quick, I think, as a thing, especially with black men. I don't see it so much with black women. But I've had it on my channel. You know, I know that they're black men. I can just tell how they're coming. Where have you studied from? Oh, who told you that's true? Nobody, the whites, the Pakistanis, no one else. I get people from all over the
No,
world
yeah.
messaging me. None of them come at
Yeah,
me that way. It's always other black men. So
yeah.
we know how this thing goes. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, there's a very important thing that you addressed, right? When Allah has created the things and then He repeats it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, if you look at the situation of Black folk, we are the descendants of slavery here in the West, and slavery most often is approached in terms of morality and legal civil rights. However, the powers that shouldn't be, when they were inventing this thing called white supremacy, and they were just developing this new system, right, some 500 years ago, they really intended to make a permanent class of slaves, so much so that they said that these black folks are not even human.
Right.
You get me? So they were trying to do exactly what Allah was doing, right? They're trying to create something and repeat it, and create, and so they codified this in their literature, in their sciences, from Darwin and his what's the name of his book again? The Origin of Species, right? From
Yeah.
that book, and the theory of evolution. They're trying to many sciences were actually invented because of white supremacy, like
Right.
eugenics,
Right.
like anthropology, like criminology from Cesare. What's his name? Cesare. I can't remember his name was on the tip of my tongue. But anyways, the point is they were telling the world that these black folks are only good to be beasts of burden. That's what they were telling the world, right? And so the whole entire world now is participating in this system, right? It doesn't make a difference where you're from, okay? The whole world is participating in the system of global white supremacy, and they're basically saying the same things. They're not looking at the fact that the most aggressive, jump in education in history took place when black folks at the Reconstruction period went from pretty much 0% literacy all the way up to the high 60s within 12 years.
Yeah.
In a 12-year period, this took place. They're not looking at the fact that without schools, without support from the government or whatnot, that black folks had their own functioning cities with banks and institutions and grocery, and they were running all of this until they were violently razed to the ground, like similar to what we see right now happening in Gaza, but on a ancient scale.
Right.
You get me? They were being bombed. Yes, they were being bombed. They were being blown up into oblivion. And the survivors have already recorded these stories. Nobody's looking at that, right? But what they look at is the fact that black people are aggressive and they are violent and they are drug dealers and uneducated. This is what's being pushed through the media, right?
Right.
So now we have this Quran, right? And we have the Sunnah, which gives us a step-by-step and a play-by-play how to get out of these conditions. And it's something that has worked time and time again. There is no people on earth, in my humble opinion, that's more similar to the desert Arabs of Arabia at the time of the Prophet Muhammad than the Western black descendants of slaves. Right? What they were going through in tribal warfare, we're going through in gang warfare. What they were going through at the killing of each other, right? We're going through the killing of each other today. Alcoholism, whatever, we're dealing with alcoholism and drugs and all this kind of stuff. All these things are very similar. Yeah. And on top of that, they were looked at by the entire world at that time as the armpit of humanity. Okay. Which is what we are looked at right now.
Paper gold. You see, black folks are chumps. If America were to tell you to bring all the rocks in this country to her, and she'll give you $1 million for it, you'll do it. And the next day she'll tell you we're using rocks for currencies, chump.